In the final months of World War II, as the Pacific burned with the fury of nations locked in a struggle for survival, the skies over Japan became battlefields of their own. April 1945 was a month when the world hovered between devastation and hope, when every mission flown by American bombers carried the weight of lives, strategy, and the possibility of ending a brutal war. It was in this moment of history high above the clouds, inside the steel belly of a B-29 superfortress, that a young airman named Henry Eugene "Red" Irwin would etch his name into the eternal record of human courage. He was only 23 years old, a soft-spoken man from Alabama, a man whose upbringing had been simple, whose dreams had been ordinary, and whose role aboard the aircraft was one few would ever call heroic. He wasn't a pilot steering the massive bomber through enemy fire. He wasn't the bombardier releasing destruction on enemy factories. He wasn't even one of the gunners defending the aircraft with machine guns blazing into the sky. His duty was humble, technical, and seemingly unremarkable. He prepared and dropped white-phosphorus signal canisters bombs, used to create smoke markers so the rest of the formation could identify targets. It was the kind of job that went unnoticed by history books, forgotten by storytellers, and underestimated by anyone who wasn't there. But wars have a way of turning ordinary tasks into deadly gambles. And on that April morning, fate turned Henry Irwin's simple duty into a test that only the rarest human beings could survive, let alone rise above. The mission began like many others. The B-29 shook as its engines roared at full power, climbing through the thin air toward the Japanese mainland. The briefings had been clear. They would execute a coordinated strike on specific industrial targets, and Irwin's signal bombs would guide the other aircraft. The air inside the bomber was filled with noise, the mechanical hum of engines, the chatter over intercoms, the shifting metal as crewmen moved to their stations. It was routine, and yet every man on board understood that routine meant nothing in war. Anything could go wrong at any second. Henry Irwin checked his equipment again and again. The white phosphorus canisters were placed in their tube, ready to be released. The process was simple. Pull the pin, wait for the fuse, drop the bomb into the chute, and let gravity take over. But white phosphorus was unforgiving. At over 1400 degrees Fahrenheit, it could burn through steel, flesh, bone, anything. Nobody worried much though. They had done this before. They trusted their training, their equipment, and each other. As the B-29 neared the target area, the order came. Irwin prepared the first signal bomb. He pulled the pin. The fuse ignited, and in that instant something went horribly wrong. Instead of dropping cleanly downward, the bomb malfunctioned. With the force of the explosion inside the tube, the blazing canister shot straight back upward like a rocket directly into Irwin's face. The ignition burst open in a blinding flash. White phosphorus flames erupted, engulfing his face, his hair, his flight suit. There was no time to react, no chance to shield himself, not even a moment to scream. The bomb had exploded in his hands, in a fraction of a second. The interior of the aircraft filled with thick, choking white smoke. Flames roared outward in every direction. The other crew members shouted as visibility dropped to almost zero. The burning phosphorus rolled across the cabin like a demon set loose, burning through whatever it touched. The oxygen tanks mounted just overhead became ticking bombs. If the flames reached them, the entire aircraft would evaporate in mid-air, leaving nothing behind but debris. And Henry Irwin, blinded and burning alive, understood that immediately. The men around him saw a human torch, but they did not yet understand what Irwin understood, that if the bomb wasn't thrown out of the plane immediately, every man on board would die. He had two choices. He could drop to the ground, try to smother the flames engulfing his body, scream for help, or attempt to save himself, or he could do the one thing that might save the others, without thinking, without hesitating, without even being able to see. Henry Irwin chose the second option, asterisk, and in that moment, history was written. Asterisk, his hands already burning down to raw flesh closed around the blazing canister. He pulled it against his chest, shielding it from reaching the oxygen tanks. The pain was beyond human description. Phosphorus does not simply burn the skin. It devours it. Clinging to him, it burned deeper and deeper, through his uniform, through muscle, through nerves. Asterisk Irwin staggered forward, completely blind, breathing smoke so thick it tore at his lungs. His entire face was melting. His hair vanished instantly. Flames crawled across his body like liquid fire. Asterisk, he had to reach the cockpit window. He had to throw the bomb out. Asterisk, between him and the cockpit stood a large steel navigation table bolted to the floor, heavy enough that two men normally lifted it. Asterisk, but Henry Irwin was running on something greater than strength. He was fueled by instinct, courage, and a loyalty that few people ever truly understand. Asterisk, with one arm wrapped around the burning bomb, the other burning hand groped for the table. He lifted. Metal groaned in protest. Crewmen watched in disbelief. It wasn't human. It wasn't possible. But Irwin lifted the table and shoved it aside. Asterisk, he continued forward, stumbling, choking, the burning canister hissing against his chest. Every inch felt like a mile. Every second, the flames spread further across his body. And every moment, the risk of the entire aircraft exploding grew worse. Asterisk, finally, he reached the cockpit. Asterisk, barely conscious, he used what little strength remained in his body. He lifted the burning canister toward the small opening. The flames licked at his hands, but he didn't stop. He shoved it outward with a final surge of strength. The bomb fell away into the sky, and Henry Irwin collapsed to the floor. Asterisk, the crew rushed to him. What they saw was almost beyond comprehension. His face was unrecognizable. His clothes were gone. His skin was peeling away. And yet he was alive. Asterisk, they began smothering the flames with their bare hands. Every crew member forgot the mission, forgot the war, forgot everything except saving the man who had saved them all. Asterisk, when Henry Irwin finally regained consciousness, wrapped in bandages, breathing in ragged gasps, with doctors hovering over him, he asked only one question. Asterisk, is everyone okay? Asterisk, even in agony, even half-blinded. His first thought was not of himself. It was his team. Doctors began removing pieces of phosphorus still embedded in his skin-glowing embers that reignited when exposed to air. Surgeons worked through the night. No one believed he would live. His burns were too severe, his injuries too catastrophic, but Henry Irwin refused to die. His story reached commanding officers almost instantly. Generals listened in silence as they heard how a man burning alive had saved an entire aircraft. The Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration in the United States, was awarded so quickly that the nearest available medal was taken from a glass display case in a storefront. It was flown to Guam and placed on Henry Irwin's chest while he lay bandaged from head to toe. Asterisk, but the medal was only a symbol of something far bigger than honor. It represented a man whose spirit defied death. Asterisk, Henry Irwin endured 40 surgeries. His eyesight returned. He rebuilt his life piece by piece. He married, started a family, and watched his children grow. He returned to civilian life without bitterness, without complaint, carrying scars that told a story few could imagine. He lived until the age of 80, and whenever people asked him why he did what he did, why he carried a burning bomb in his arms, why he walked through fire, why he sacrificed himself without hesitation, he answered with a smile, asterisk, my team was my family. I just wanted to save them. Asterisk, it was a simple sentence, spoken by a man who had looked death in the eyes and chosen to walk through flames to save others. a sentence that held within it every ounce of the courage that defined him. Asterisk in the great, sprawling history of World War II, countless names are etched across monuments, books, and memories. But few acts of heroism stand as brightly as the moment Irwin chose to carry a burning bomb against his own body so that others might live. Asterisk thousands of feet above Japan. In a sky filled with smoke and danger, one man proved that heroism is not always loud, not always grand, not always seen by millions. Sometimes it is the quiet courage of a man whose job was never meant to make him a hero, yet whose actions gave him a place among the greatest the world has ever known. Asterisk, and long after the war ended, long after the bombers stopped flying, long after the world moved on, the story of Henry Red Irwin remained a story not of battle, but of sacrifice, not of destruction, but of loyalty, not of orders, but of love for his fellow man. Asterisk, the kind of story written not in books alone. Asterisk, but in the skies of history.